Hello, welcome to the third section of the Communist Manifesto, where Marx goes on to talk about socialist and communist literature. We'll deal very briefly with what this means, because it's very time specific, and then we'll talk a little bit about how this is expanded and continued to grow in other ways. And by that I mean the socialist slash communist literature has not improved, and so we'll sort of see how it's still relevant to what we have to deal with now. So, talking about socialism, he talks about reactionary socialism first of all, and he talks about the feudal socialism, and in it he basically talks about the feudal aristocrats who kind of say they're for the working class, but they're for the working class only insofar as it attacks the bourgeoisie, because the feudal lords have been displaced as the main stay of society and have been replaced by the capitalists. And basically, what Marx just does is takes them to task. That even when they're right for the wrong reasons, and when they are occasionally right, the working class accepts that they're right insofar as they say that the bourgeoisie are evil, the capitalists are evil, but the feudal lords themselves are utterly and absolutely ridiculous. There's not too much feudal socialism that exists. There's some forms of Catholic socialism that kind of use a feudal base, but it's weird and very non-existent. So then he talks about petty bourgeois socialism, in which capitalism has nearly destroyed the petty bourgeois or small business owners, and they want to return to the old relationships. They want to bring back how society was. But what Marx points out is they don't get that society has already passed them by. This is very much what socialism in the United States looks like. People are like, we need Bernie-style socialism so we can go back to high-paying, good jobs like the 50s. The 50s were not socialism, and the desire to return to that is not a desire for socialism, although it may seem like it given how awful our current neoliberal period is. That's not a return to socialism because it wasn't socialism in the first place, but it is what it is what we've got. Next, he talks about German or true socialism as reactionary socialism. Now, this is really interesting. He says French socialism is really radical and it has all these radical ideas. But then when it's imported into Germany, they don't have any basis for this sort of radicalization. And so they begin adopting the socialism as true socialism, but it's completely devoid and naked of any of the things that actually make it worthwhile, which required a real working class movement which in France there was. I think it's very interesting to note how, for example, Maoism gets played out in the United States, completely devoid of a party, completely devoid of any of the mass work that all of the real communist parties that are Maoist worldwide carry out. So I think it's funny how the true highest form of socialism comes to the United States and bears a very striking resemblance to this, but I will just leave that there. You can draw your own conclusions. Next, he talks about conservative or bourgeois socialism, and what he talks about is at first, bourgeois socialists they attempt to get capitalism without the capitalism. The idea that they can mitigate the worst aspects of capitalism and continue with the beneficial parts of it, technological advances, is essentially they want capitalism without the capitalism. And what they also notice, or what Marx also noticed, is that although they try to make minor reforms, ultimately capitalism continues to exist. People often talk about how we need socialism like Scandinavia. It's not real socialism. It's this trying to make bourgeois or capitalist socialism a real deal, which is nonsensical, and it plays out very nonsensically. Next, he talks about critical utopian socialism and communism, and in this case, although it is in general fairly critical, it's worth noting he says that this utopian socialism makes sense when there isn't a developed working class. And what's really interesting about this is he says this, and of course we go, well, of course, Marx, you need a real working class. But even at the time, it wasn't clear that capitalism was going to be the dominant system the way that it functioned. For example, Pareto, most famously known for his economic terms and economic analysis and Pareto optimality, thought that the capitalists who own the means of production would end up renting out essentially the means of production, and you would essentially have basically everyone would be a small business owner, and the capitalist class would just be the class that rented this stuff out. And it seemed plausible at the time. And Marx was like, nope, that's not going to happen. This is completely wrong. This is not even worth our time. But serious economists at the time disagreed, and they were proven absolutely 100% wrong. So it's worth noting that even people critical or that the utopian socialists and communists of the time were trying their best. And he actually talks about this. These systems collapsed because there was a lack of advanced production. Or you got the Owenists and I forget the other various utopian socialists, and they try and create little communes and whatnot, but they really are unable to achieve their ends. In any case, Marx ends it and says that communism stands opposite to critical utopian socialism because it bases itself on material conditions. And then that is really the foundation and essence of Marxism compared to, according to the Communist Manifesto, compared to the other forms of socialism.